So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end as per Yirmiyahu the prophet. We find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. As we read then Yirmiyahu the prophet, we always make a reference of the holy prophecies, so we ourselves can stand on a holy path, and then obviously learning more regarding the time of the restoration period, and then the changes made over the years regarding then the holy instructions. As it always was explained, the holy Hebrew language was always intact. We can obviously make reference of the meanings of the words, and as we have a flow of events, we can always establish the Hebrew words as then, as far as locations, always geographical areas where then events must take place. The prime example is the 11th chapter of Daniel. We find then obviously there is not a reference of the Greco country, because the 10th chapter was absolutely related with China. As the base of the statue, then Daniel was obviously praying, he was fasting, and he received the understanding after more than 20 days of fasting. And then he did receive indications of the place where then those kingdoms would come from. You find kingdom of the east, kingdom of the south, and the kingdom of the north. Besides these, let's then understand the situation regarding the covenant. We find then dual understanding of the covenant. The first section we find then regarding the ruler of the covenant on the 23rd verse of the 11th chapter. Let's try to understand what this means. As we read then, there is a deceit involved with this covenant. This means what then the Messiah or the Savior himself has said on the 24th chapter of Mitchiyahu, where then he said that abomination that makes desolate. You find then representatives of these people trying to extend and re-establish the first service. Later on, you find the establishment of the vision, also very important, because we find these then giving entrance as far as couple of areas. The first is then the place beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. Then you find the establishment of the vision, and then you find the Holy Covenant. The Holy Covenant and the establishment of the vision, these are similar. As we can study both of them, you can absolutely have a conclusion as far as what does it mean, the Holy Covenant, versus then a ruler of the covenant then promoting deceit. The ruler of the covenant, as we read in the 23rd verse, is then involved with a sect, the abomination that makes desolate. As far as in the 29th verse explains then the Holy Covenant, or then the establishment of the vision. The establishment of the vision is then regarding Yirmiyahu chapter 1:8. That's where we get our understanding from, and then the returning of the holy cities. Now, as far as the violent ones, you can read for yourself and then understand what this means. Then you find these section and the violent ones. Then we can understand a bit more as far as the areas beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, because it gives you then where the violent ones they inhabited. But let's then try to find this section, so then we understand the relationship of these covenants. Obviously there is only a covenant, but as far as we understand the wordings and the meanings, give you the understanding of a couple of them. Then you find also in the 30th verse, there is also, then shalt be grieved and furious against the Holy Covenant. We are speaking of United States. We are speaking of the military of U.S. then retrieving. That's where we get the understanding from, and being furious regarding then the establishment of the vision. Firstly then, let's establish an understanding of the despised one, United States, and these section regarding then the covenant. As we always understand, Gog and Magog, we are explaining then sections of United States and Israel. U.S. was always involved with a false savior, and at this time you find a relationship in trying then to benefit both of them. As they get involved with the violent ones, then the situation turns against United States. These relationships, there is only a link with it, and it's religious. There is a factor regarding then as far as the linker of the system, where they come out of this deal very wealthy. It's another section of it. But then let's try to understand these as far as the violent ones. We should then draw a conclusion as far as the place beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. Then explains a section in 23rd, explains a section of great wealth in the 28th, and then turning back because of the furious state of the United States. And then Yirmiyahu the prophet explaining then chapter 1:8 regarding the violent ones. As we understand these, we then go a bit further as far as the understanding at this time and what is leading towards the despised status. As we can read these sections, we find then, firstly then, the existing status of the United States. The economy is not doing very nicely. As far as arms sales, they are very weak. And there was a problem going on in northern Iraq. It is very troublesome understanding the position of the U.S. government, trying to jump ahead as many times they have done it during the time of the Gulf War. In so many other conflicts, they have a problem of waiting for other organizations. Understandably, sometimes the other organizations, they drag. They are not sometimes on time. But this time, it is very important for us then the establishment of the involvement of other countries. United States, they don't own the planet. Mr. Obama does not own the planet. Let's make this very clear. Not only this, there are other countries also concerned regarding then what's going on with the civil people in Iraq. And then expecting the Iraqis to join up with the United States and giving heavy weaponry then draws another problem. U.S. then is absolutely trying to get arms sold. It's part of the American economy. They thrive upon destruction. That's why then when we read in Revelation regarding these nations, they speak like a lamb, but they act like destroyers. So the best way for other nations to put a limit regarding then the extension of this area of destruction is simply uniting themselves with United Nations. Those people are, when they want to be, very reliable, and then the involvement of them on a field, for instance, securing an area only for the civilians so they can come to a safe haven, yet not declaring war involving the country. During these times, we find the United States trying to pick a fight and then fight the wars for other people. They have this global responsibility on their own, and they always use this situation to get arms sold. This tactic, it's very, very known, and countries, they get very upset with it because US takes advantage using a lamb-like situation of caring for others, yet they use the other side to get destruction further. In order to limit this situation, as it was explained, United Nations must then take the lead. They must be given a set time in securing an area. From then on, then those leaders of United Nations, they can establish a place of securing an area for the civilians. And from then on, then talks of other countries such as France, Great Britain, Germany. So if there is a problem and they should place soldiers on the ground, they should be under the leadership of the United Nations. But securing an area at the moment for the civilians is extremely important because it involves other people also concerned and places a limit on US to use destruction as their way of living. So then, as far as a place secured for those civilians, it doesn't take very much for a person to understand the importance of this area and then protecting it. Then if those malicious scoundrels, if they have no love for their own, they should at least reserve a path so then those people can get away from the war. The understanding is ethnic cleansing. Some people over there, they have no studies. They were never learned. They have no internet in their homes. So then those militias, they should be a bit more caring as far as what those people on the mountains are going through at the moment. But the secured place for those civilians, if they invade, they should be shot at, giving a limitation. Obviously, other countries over there, protecting the people, they won't provoke war. And then expecting a country such as Iraq to come up with a logical way of politics also does not make any sense. So then, when people in places of responsibility, a simple fact, if a person does not know how to build a fence in the very backyard of their homes, do they have a sense of formation in their minds in expecting a government broken, busted, then coming up with a logical solution for a problem that they can handle it. The primary objective at the moment is the protection of those civilians. Heck with the politics at the time. Until we get established a place secured for those civilians, then the rest of it should be placed aside. But governments are always involved with some sort of a diplomatic junk. You have a diplomatic sometimes amongst the people who are learned, and they can understand their problems. But expecting then U.S. to come up with a heavy weaponry, this truly does not make any sense, because U.S. won't fight for them. And that's precisely what they're expecting. So then, dealing with Islamic groups, we must understand a couple of factors. One of them, Ezekiel 37. The Islamic people are the sons of Ishmael. They have a promise, the restoration of trade, and they won't be able to control those people. Second is the authority of tabernacling. So then, if U.S. is trying to control those people, they're going to waste their time. They're going to provoke more anger than trying to calm them. And the only way of calming those people, those rebels, those militias, is establishing a place secured, strictly for the civilians. They have absolutely no help from anybody. They are hungry and they are thirsty. If they get their noses beyond the line, they should be shot at, so they understand limitations. And then bringing, obviously, provisions and helping those civilians. This should be the first act. Now, expecting some sort of a solution from the government can best forget it. It won't take place for a time. Not until those militias, they get ashamed of what they are doing it, liking it or not. And then with time, more nations, they get involved, and then afterwards the militia, they get tired of it. So then, let's establish what's going on as far as the violent ones. We find then, firstly, this prophecy, precisely then, Yeshayahu chapter 1:8, explaining then the region of the violent ones is then beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, speaking of Congo, in the areas near Congo. And what can we understand as far as great wealth from Congo? And there is a link on the 28th verse. What do we understand of technology? As far as we can read, the importance of this topic is the violent ones of chapter 1:8 of Yeshayahu. You can understand they are part of the kingdom of the south, and they are having relationship with the kingdom of the north, the kingdom of the east. Then the linking of the systems, as far as virtual monetary systems, you can understand the great wealth the U.S. then is at their disposal as they join the system of China. So then, other areas of these relation with the covenant is then linked with the revelation. Later on, you find revelation in many layers, such as the spiritual layer of first, second, and third. The first is regarding the desolation. The second is regarding then the true vision, or the re-establishment of tabernacling. The third is the false Messiah depicted on a horse. That scoundrel on a white horse. That's the false Messiah. As we understand the relationship of the despised one, the deceitful ruler of the first tabernacle service, and the anger, you can read very precisely on the 29th verse, then U.S. being angry with the Holy Covenant because of the establishment of the vision, and then the retrieval of the forces. These then is the very fact that later becomes the propulsion system that's going to cause the release of the atomic bomb. Then we have to link up these with Revelation and understand the events from then on. As far as we can understand, as the socialists, such as then China, Soviet Union, Cuba, amazingly, they won't release any atomic bomb. What does mention is a very organized system of trade and protection using much equipment. Later on, then obviously, the armies of the world will be against the holy cities. And these we should study more the next time. So please stay tuned.